So, you created yourself a nice little fictional universe. It works, it's coherent, it's a good foundation for stories, it's a good foundation for all the media, books, games, video, the works. Congratulations. The question then becomes, now what? And a big part of now what is how far can you push beyond the original idea before your fictional universe starts to crack? How far can you push before the new fictional universe no longer resembles the old one enough that the people you got on board will enjoy it? Theoretically, you can go anywhere with anything. Scooby-Doo could have time travelers show up. Star Trek could land on a fantasy world populated by orcs and elves. Hell, any historical show could suddenly have supernatural entities burst through the door and turn everything into a urban fantasy or historical fantasy setting. Anything can literally be turned into anything. That is not the question. The question is, can you do it without changing the basis of your fictional universe too much for those who already enjoy it to enjoy what you're doing? Let's have a look at the things that may change. Now, the simple things to change are characters or locations. You can have characters swapped out. That's a perfectly common thing to see even in storylines that aren't entire fictional universes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The question here is very often the role that a character plays. Lead characters that are beloved or carry a large part of the weight of the fictional universe will typically be very hard to replace. If you were to create an extended fictional universe around Harry Potter and his time at Hogwarts, replacing Harry Potter might be taking it a step too far. Hermione, Ron, it could possibly be done. It would have to be careful, it would have to be respectful, but it could possibly be done. Draco, sure, he could be replaced. It would still be a bit odd, but his role in the story is an antagonist and not even the main one. Other side characters, the Weasleys, the various teachers at Hogwarts, all of those can be replaced fairly quickly. The originals can be tossed out unceremoniously, or in a few cases ceremoniously to show some respect to the franchise, or they can be kept around as very minor background characters. The big baddie, Voldemort, other big baddies can rise. The Death Eaters may gather around a new great villain, or a whole new set of villains may rise to threaten our friends and their little magical school. For those who don't know about Harry Potter, don't worry. All of this is fairly plain and common matters. You can transpose it to any kind of fictional universe you can think of. Could you take Star Trek and throw away the entire crew and just keep Captain Kirk around? Maybe. Could you throw out Captain Kirk, the main character, and the entire crew? Essentially, they already did that with Star Trek The New Generation. That's a spin-off show in many ways. Very little connection to the old one, and the new characters ended up being beloved. So yes, characters can be replaced if done right, if done respectfully, and if done carefully. Locations may even be easier. Let's take Harry Potter again. The series Harry Potter is all centered around a bunch of school children attending a magical school. The main location thus becomes the magical school, Hogwarts. Could they leave Hogwarts behind? They probably could. They could take up roots in a new school after its destruction at the end of the series, or maybe they could go elsewhere, not a school, spread out, have different locations around England, perhaps even around the world. Other schools have been mentioned in the series. They could join up at them. The key to changing locations is often to make the new locations matter in much the same way, but not entirely the same way. You don't just replace it with a carbon copy. You replace it with something that allows growth. Maybe a bigger, less defined magical school, one that the characters that are so beloved can make their imprint on. New founders, a new basis for a new school. Maybe a school that is based on very different concepts. Maybe a school that actually acknowledges the existence of technologies. Imagine an older, slightly wiser Harry Potter and his friends dealing with magic that includes cell phones and the internet, technological sorcery, spells cast in neon lights. It might be pushing it too far. It might not. It depends on how respectfully it's done. That actually starts to push the narrative in a new direction. Because if a location or a character changes enough, does it push other things? Allowing technology to even exist in some kind of important role in Harry Potter, a series of stories that almost thrive on denying the importance of anything past the invention of electricity. How will it affect it? What will be pushed else? That moves us a bit into the genre. Genres, as I've mentioned before, are more than just single box sets of story backgrounds. You have your world genres, you have your style genres, you have your plot genres, you have more than that. But those are the three that I've paid the most attention to. The odd thing here is, the world genre might be the easiest to replace. Imagine whatever your favorite series of stories is, be it a video game or movies or books or whatever, and imagine it given a new dress. If it's fantasy, imagine it as steampunk. If it's space science fiction, imagine it as espionage in the Cold War era. You can exchange the bits and pieces that make up a lot of the important aspects of a world with far more ease than you'd usually think. Most kinds of world genres have their own special abilities that set them apart from just drab, bland mundanity. Science fiction has technology, fantasy has magic. Espionage, they have gadgets. And usually, these can be swapped around with a bit of creativity. Once these special powers within the world genre have been translated into something new, characters, organizations, locations, events, and so on practically follow on their own. You take Harry Potter, you make it a dark, modern hacking school. Well, Harry is a prodigy hacker who got in a fight at a very tender age with a very cruel and very brutal kind of hacker that took things a bit too far and killed his parents. Hacking becomes the new magic. You do things with computers instead of with wands. Hogwarts becomes some underground hacking community where the old guard teaches the newbies all the old tricks. Individual rooms that are special within the Hogwarts mythology become similar places, either real or virtual, in the hacker mythology. Rooms that appear are places that appear online that you can get access to if you know how to get to them. Ghosts become little glitches in the machines, or distant hackers locked away from the world, only available online. Or, if you want to push it far enough, they become AI, artificial intelligences, that only live within the machines. A lot of this loses the luster that the magical pre-electricity kind of mentality has in Harry Potter. The question becomes, how far can you push it before it breaks? How far can you go away from the magic and into the hacker universe before you lose people? The answer to that is usually keep as much of the old around, but use it as an excuse to portray the new. Yeah, sure, you change the world into hacking and dark technology users, but the magic is still there. You can still access computers via spells. You can still use technology to cast magic. You still have house elves running around serving your new main characters. It might seem implausible, but done with respect and without jettisoning too much of the old, you can change anything, any kind of fictional universe into another, even if it still has some of its roots with it. But the question now becomes, if you're currently in the process of designing the fictional universe, do you want to make it so that it becomes easier to transfer into other world genres? Do you want it to be looser? Do you want it to be more flexible? If Harry Potter had been written from the beginning with just a single hacker person walking around the halls of Hogwarts, learning magic just like everyone else, but every now and then talking about his hacking, there would suddenly be a lot more leeway for Harry Potter to actually enter that world, briefly or for a longer term. If you put mentions or even fragments of other world genres into your fictional universe from the start, you can play them as little background noises that never mean much but are just lingering there, or you can later on use them to transfer into that kind of world genre. The same cannot be said for style genres. Surprising as it may be, it's harder to change the style than it is to change the world that the story is being told in. Enjoying a story, no matter what its medium is an emotional experience. It's not a logical one. It's not a rational one. It's about the feeling of it more than the reality of it. Having hackers be a part of a Harry Potter story might seem a bit out there, might seem a bit odd, might seem a bit contrary to what the stories are about, but it doesn't entirely shake off what the stories were, how the stories made the audience feel. The original stories accept the existence of the real world, which means accepting the existence of real things like hackers. Tying them into a magical universe is a bit of added work, but it is not entirely implausible, it's not entirely jarring. However, if a story starts out very serious, having it suddenly turn silly will be jarring. Even if a story is already a bit dark, such as noir, where it's acknowledged that there are horrible things in the world, but things can still be done about them, then having it suddenly tumble into splatterpunk might be a bit of a throw for anyone enjoying it. The solemn, dark, moody presence of detectives or even superheroes like Batman can suddenly become very, very discomforting if everything is about ripping anyone apart in a ballet of blood spatter and torn limbs. That is not what the audience enjoys the originals for. Style is harder to move than the world when it comes to a fictional universe. The overall plot genre, the kind of stories expected to occur in the fictional universe, lies somewhere between the two, between world genres and style genres when it comes to changing them. They can be changed, especially if the change is brief, just a detour into some other ideas. A fictional universe, usually revolving around mystery, might take a sudden detour down action street, and it could fit perfectly well if things turned back to what they were afterwards. Having it turn completely into action permanently, however, might shake off quite a lot of the audience who came there for following the mysterious clues and finding out devious plans. Having another kind of plot suddenly have a bit of influence is a bit more doable. This could be a fictional universe preoccupied with mystery plots that suddenly sees the mysteries include a few fistfights or even gunfights, some action put into the detective work. This might be surprising, but it would not seem as implausible as a sudden shift from going through clues and talking to witnesses and then instead just gunning down bad guys in alleys or having car chases. Whether it just becomes a slight hybrid or a bit of a touch of another plot genre, or if it is a transfer period, a bit of softening the blow from shifting from mystery to action, well, that can affect a lot. An audience will sense when they are being pushed in a direction. If action begins to take up more space in the stories compared to mystery, the audience may slowly turn away. Some may stay. Some may like the change even. But there are those, possibly a lot, who will feel that they're being tricked into shifting their interests. Having the action just be a touch of new entertainment thrown in to keep things lively. That can sometimes work even to the benefit of the mystery. Things go stale. Having the same kind of plots over and over again after time will deteriorate the interest of some of the audience. Having it spiffed up with a touch of another plot genre is not always a bad idea. So to go back to the original question, how far can you push your fictional universe? The answer is the old and horrible, it depends. It depends on how much you prepared your fictional universe to be changed, to be pushed. It depends on how interested your audience is in variation, how flexible their interests are. And it depends very much on how you do it. As with the plot genres, the big question is usually, is this a change to something else? Or is this just a dash, a bit of spice to liven up everything before it grows stale? Something that is added and may be retracted again once a new kind of footing is found, once the stale old formula is no longer stale anymore. The answers can only be found by actually doing the change, which is probably why a lot of these changes are careful or played off for just a gag, a bit of fun, a sudden character that is a bit strange thrown into a familiar environment, a way to test if a fictional universe is ready to be expanded or even changed at a fundamental level. Change is not always the spice of life. That is a misnomer. People like what they feel comfortable with, what they feel safe with. Audiences are very often creatures of habit. They don't like things being changed too much. But if the change is used in a way to broaden the original idea, some will welcome it, some won't. Everyone will never follow along on any change. But if Harry Potter suddenly realizes that magic can be manipulated with things more modern than wooden wands, then those new things, those new ideas, may find their own roots with at least some of the audience. And maybe they will go off on their own tangent, leaving the old original storyline to continue untouched, while a new storyline takes in the new opportunities side by side. Or maybe things will change entirely. It's hard to know. It's hard to foresee. But thinking of it in advance always makes it easier when the question finally shows its head.